Good evening. We bring you the latest in the world of sports. I'm Paolo Del Rosario.
We give you the conversations you want to hear from your favorite icons and athletes. I'm Aitan Sai. In tonight's Game Plan, we'll break down history in the making as we witness the magical run of Leylah Fernandez as she reaches her first Grand Slam final at the 2021 US Open.
You'll also talk about the Ribisco Philippines men's and women's volleyball team and Chocomucho Philippines women's volleyball team as they set their eyes on the Asian Club Volleyball Championship. And as Barangay Ginebra and the San Miguel Beermen battle it out in the 2021 PBA Philippine Cup, we'll answer the question, are they still the clear-cut title favorites in the league? Buckle up, sports fans. Let's get in the game. In professional tennis, the major tournaments are where superstars are born and legends are made. It's where the very best in the world collide for a place in the record books, and for 19-year-old Leylah Fernandez, it's been a coming-out party for the ages. Debuting on the pro circuit in 2019, Fernandez is currently ranked number 73 in the world with a junior Grand Slam title and a trip to the Olympics already under her belt. Supported by her Ecuadorian father, George Fernandez, and Fil-Canadian mother, Irene Exavea, Leylah is on the verge of her first major title. After outlasting third-seeded Naomi Osaka in the third round, Fernandez won again against three-time champ Angelique Kerber and beat world number 3 Elina Svitolina. In the semis, Fernandez would take down number 2 seed Arina Sabalenka in another three-setter to reach her first final. And what a trip it has been. Joining us to discuss Leylah's magical run and her upcoming final showdown is a man who has been following this historic US Open since day one. One of our hosts here on the game, Boom Gonzalez. Boom!
Good to see you again. Long time no see.
It's like it's been a few days. My goodness.
Hi, Ai.
All
Hey,
right,
guys.
so before we get to the finals matchup, obviously this has been a special run.
Yep.
It actually trended here in the Philippines over on social media. And it's special for a lot of reasons, but what makes it the most special for you?
Well, first of all, the ages, of the two girls, not just Leylah Fernandez, but even Emma Raducanu, who made the finals. They're teenagers. They basically made the US Open a playground, their own playground, literally. They had, the odds were against them, 200-1 for Leylah, 100-1 for Emma Raducanu. And it's the different roads that they took, the different paths that they took. For Leylah, it's been incredible. She's beaten, as you mentioned earlier, number 2, number 3, number 5. And the one that was not mentioned there because she's not seeded anymore, but is a 3-time champion, you mentioned earlier, Angie Kerber. And she beat them in, 3 sets, tie breaks, come from behind matches. They were not easy. They were all hard-earned, so pretty special.
And Boom, how impressed are you coming from a 19-year-old on her second pro year? She said in her interview that she actually visualized herself playing against Osaka. She said that she dreamt of playing against these giants, and here she actualized her dream, and we can actually call her a young giant slayer. What do you think about that?
And at that time, she was 18. That was before her birthday. She turned 19 on Monday. It all started there. And yes, Pao, we're around athletes a lot, and they always say that they visualize going up against their idols, going up against, the best players in the world. That's what happened. Naomi Osaka actually had a match point against her. You asked me about what impressed me. What also has impressed me, and to answer your question, is the fact that all of this is happening while the seeded and the champion teams and the more popular ones and the more experienced ones are all faltering in the tightest of matches.
Yeah.
They're the ones who are panicking, and Leylah Fernandez is the one who's been in the zone. Naomi broke her racket, Sabalenka broke her racket, and all these other girls are just really are uncharacteristic in terms of how they play the game. So that's impressive.
You brought that up, and a lot of been said about her poise. It's maturity
Her
beyond her
composure.
years.
Yeah,
It has been a cliche said over and over again.
Right.
But really, looking at those matches, you mentioned how frustrated these girls were against Leylah. Just what makes her so infuriating to play against?
That's a great question. From a tennis standpoint, I think it's the fact that the balls just keep coming back. You know, usually the winners na yan sa mga Naomi Osaka, Kerber, power hitters like Sabalenka. These are, or Svitolina even, the number 5 girl. Usually they would finish the plays with all of those power hits, but the ball just keeps coming back.
Yeah.
And it's frustrating for another tennis player that a kid basically is returning all of these shots that are supposed to be winners already. Now, that's the technical side. The other side is because the crowd is all for Leylah. And it has frustrated the players that nobody, hindi naman nobody, but majority is going for the underdog, the one who lives in the north. So, yeah,
Okay.
adopted.
Yeah, Boom, let's talk about Emma and Leylah.
Yeah.
The teenage dream. How excited are you for this upcoming matchup, given that they actually played against each other back in 2019
Yeah.
with Emma beating Leylah back then?
I put it on my IG stories, I don't know, 3 or 4 days ago that, can it be possible? I mean, that was like 4 matches away. But it is now, obviously, it's going to happen. Yes, they met each other. They were in the juniors back then. They've been playing together, not against each other since they were 12. They've known each other since they were kids, babies. Emma won that match. I don't think I would count that as something to consider. It's a juniors matchup. Emma, also impressive her run because her first WTA tour was this year. And her first Grand Slam matches were also this year, ever. So that's another journey that is impressive. But I'm just happy that they're the ones who are showing a lot of mental toughness. And that's become a topic among the younger generation, diba? That they might have been, some of these players might have been mentally weak and all of that. But these two have shown fortitude and toughness. And that's a great takeaway just from a sporting standpoint.
We just look a while ago at the tail of the tape there between Radanahu and Fernandez, and 19 and 18 years old. It's incredible. 73 world ranking, 150 for Raducanu, rather.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because that one singles title that Fernandez has, it's a junior title.
French Open.
And a lot of people might think that, okay, maybe she has advantage here. But then you look at Emma's road going to the final, it has been a lot more dominant than what Fernandez has shown.
There are things that you consider in her road. Number one, the hours that she spent on the court. Against earlier this morning, I think over her opponent, Sabalenka, she had 2.5 hours more. So she's been, and she looked fatigued actually in the set 3, no? So that might be a consideration. She played more matches, she's spent more court time and grueling matches. Emma naman played 3 more matches than her because she had to qualify for the main draw. So that might balance out. But in terms of, I like what you said, Pao, in terms of opponent, quality of opponents, Leylah has the advantage. Emma, her first seeded opponent was already in the quarterfinals. That was against the gold medalist Belinda Bencic before today. So she's had 2 seeded opponents so far, while Leylah has had 4 already. Now all the way best of 3 or 3 setters, and she's shown a lot of obviously poise through those matches in Arthur Ashe Stadium, their center court. So that to me is an advantage.
Well, when we were talking about this off the air, we were talking about how young these girls are and how this is a teenage dream.
It is.
A song that she probably not too familiar with. But
No, you should know that.
you should know that song.
You're talking about Katy Perry? You should know that.
Absolutely, right? At least I hope so, right? But looking at this, the last time they had teenagers in the finals.
In the finals, right.
Was way, way back when. In fact, it was Martina Hingis and Serena Williams back in 1999. And you look at those names, Serena Williams, Martina Hingis. Do you feel that, well, those two went on to have great careers?
Correct.
Is this the start
Legendary.
of a great career for these 2 young ladies?
I'm always careful about putting that kind of, statements out. Oh, you're going to win 10 more, 15 more. It's tough. But here's how I'm going to answer that, Pao. And in the women's tournament, it is much easier to, right now, and this is not anything, it's because it's more wide open. Unlike in the men's tournament, the last 20 years, you had 3 or 4 gatekeepers who have been holding on to the throne. In the women's tournament, it's a little more open, the field. The champions have been varied. Other than Serena, Naomi, Kerber, you have players like Ash Barty, Iga Swiatek, Pavlyuchenkova. These are, parang there's more variety and the field is much more open. So there are more chances to advance and be champions in the women's division as opposed to the men's. And yes, I think this US Open gave us the sign that this up-and-coming talent, even in the men's, the 20-year-olds, 22, 23-year-olds are really taking the throne and are showing that they got next. Yeah,
You know
it's
what?
fun.
I think. Do you want to ask Boom for his prediction for the finals, or are you good? Are you good and leaving it as it is at the moment?
I'm good and I'm leaving it.
Okay, he's so nice to you.
I was ready.
Too nice.
I was
All
ready.
right. But Boom, thank you very much. Always
course.
a pleasure having you
Of
here.
course.
And no matter what happens, the tennis fans are excited to see the rise of these tennis superstars. And yes, after the break, we'll be talking about the teams who are setting their eyes on the Asian Club Volleyball Championship. Keep it here. You're watching The Game. Welcome back to The Game. The Philippines is sending 3 volleyball squads to the Asian Club Volleyball Championships happening in Nakhon Ratchasima, Thailand. The Rubisco and Chocomucho women's team is set to leave on September 27 and compete from October 1 to 7. Meanwhile, the Rubisco men's team leaves a week after and will compete from October 8 to 14. Joining us to talk about these squads is our volleyball analyst, no other than Mela Tunay. Mela, ano nga bang tunay tungkol sa mga team na ipapadala natin sa Thailand?
Grabe naman. Hi Pao, hi Ai. Ang tunay, ang daming nakakagulat na mga balita. There were additions sa mga lineups natin, and yun nga, sa women's, 2 team, sa men's, 1 team. So it's very exciting for the volleyball fans na meron tayong nilolook forward to na teams para suportahan in an international league.
Absolutely. And Mela, you know what? You can tell us your honest thoughts about the composition of all the rosters and how you think the teams will do. And yes, you're laughing kasi really? Maybe you should. But then looking at this, Rubisco women's team, let's go to them first. This team is it's a mix of previous incarnations and then the youth, the younger players of this of the national team. How do you feel they're going to gel? Is it going to be a problem? Do you feel that the veteran members have a more of a mentor role to the younger ones, and with a foreign coach? There's so many questions. Go through your most important points about this squad.
Well, yung pagkakahati kasi ng mga teams, makikita mo yung purpose agad din. Like, yung mga matatagal na sa national team, ready makulangan din Santiago Manabat, we have Abby Maranyo leading the charge for the Ribisco women's volleyball team na maraming mga youngsters na nandun. So dun pa lang, makikita mo na kahit pa paano, they really try to balance it out para may mag-guide dito sa very potential set of youngsters na nandito sa Ribisco team, no? Pero pa, gusto mo ng tunay, honestly, you asked me about gelling. It's not because ngayon lang sila magkakalaro itong mga set of players na to. Every year, yun ang biggest question sa mga lineup na pinapadala natin, di ba? Yung gelling nila. Because this is not the first time that we're sending out a team na short time lang nag-prepare. So, gelling will always be one of the biggest, if not the biggest question every time we send out teams to an international volleyball league. And then the second lineup naman, the Choco Mucho lineup, it's full of power spikers talaga. But honestly, I think medyo mahirap din yung pag-convert ng mga wing spikers. Kasi nung nakita ko yung lineup, parang puro opposite hitters yung nandun. You have Kat Tolentino, Kiana D, MJ Phillips, and then si Kalimao is there. That's a good addition, especially because si Jaja is in Japan right now. We really need all the boost that we can from our more experienced players. Pero si Kalay, from what I know, naglaro siya sa Puerto Rico as an opposite. So, I'm not sure if yung transition lang nila ng pwesto will be something that they have to adjust to come the league that they're joining in. So,
And Mela,
yan ang tunay.
given that a lot of these players just came fresh from the PVL as we have covered, will that be an advantage? Lalo na galing sila sa Ilocos, we also have Phil-Ams and Canadians being a strong factor for this squad. We have, like what you said nga, we have Kalimao, we have MJ Phillips, Iris Tolenada, Kat Tolentino. What do you think about that, Mela?
Well, like I said, we need all the boost that we can for this upcoming league kasi yun, yung mga nanggaling ng PVL, nakita naman natin na condition sila and they managed to finish off a whole season na maganda yung performance ng mga players na inad natin dito sa national team. So, for sure, malaking tulong yun. And the Phil-Ams for sure will also be a big boost because potential, ang dami talaga mga high potential na players dito sa Philippines, pero nag-elevate din talaga yung level of laro dito sa Philippines. So nagkaroon na tayo ng mga international coaches and then may mga Phil-Ams na tayo kasi more than our local players getting challenged, it's really the techniques also that we get to learn from the other cultures sa international volleyball na dinadala rin dito ng mga Phil-Am players natin.
Well, you know, this is also a foreign coach team, and it should be interesting. Talking about Ribisco. And again, we have also foreign knowledge coming in sa Choco Mucho in form of the players. But if you put these teams on a head-to-head basis, if you make them play against each other, sabihin natin 3-game series. Difficult, I know. But who do you got?
Parang gusto ko dun sa for me, dark horse yung Ribisco na women's. Kasi binibase ko siya sa defense, floor defense. Although net defense, Choco Mucho ako, pero floor defense, nandun sila Gemma sa kabila, and then yung mga youngsters kasi doon, although they are young in age, hindi na sila bata sa paglalaro because these are experienced players sa juniors. Nakapag-represent na rin niya ng bansa, mga junior volleyball leagues, and talagang mataas yung level ng UAAP juniors. So, nakita ko na rin sila, a lot of volleyball fans have seen them play, and mataas talaga yung level ng paglaro nila ng volleyball. So, I wanted to bank on their potential plus their defense. So, kung head-to-head, Ribisco women's ako.
Wow.
Yun ang tunay
That's
na
why I like
bold
it. She doesn't sit on the fence. She actually thinks.
Diba? Who can score 22 points?
That's true.
Game, so.
That is true.
And Mela, dahil nag-women's team tayo, lumipat naman tayo sa men's team. This is the same core as SEA Games. They won before. Does this heighten their chances now, 2021 na?
Well, yung men's kasi sobrang nakakatuwang suportahan dahil maliban sa sobrang focus talaga sila sa preparation. They've been preparing silently nauna silang, alam ko, mag-bubble kasi sa women. So, the whole process, like during the tryouts, a lot of them, majority of them were there talaga. The commitment is there. And then when it comes to the training, very silent and they look very focused na kapag sinabing men's volleyball, nagkakaisa talaga sila. So, big blow din na wala yung top two scorers natin, Bagunas and Espejo from the last SEA Games silver finish, diba? Pero we have additions also who I'm sure will step up dahil may mga veterans din talaga sa team who are capable to encourage talaga everyone to step up. And I think nagre-reflect talaga yung eagerness ng lineup ng men's team natin. So I'm sure yung momentum nila from the 2019, 2 years ago na yon, pero it made history eh. Iba yung drive na makukuha nila from that, plus yung work that they put in until now.
Speaking of 2 years ago, Mela, this is the first time the men's teams can come back together in 2 years. For the women's, they actually have had at least a big chunk of them actually had competitive volleyball recently with the PVL. But the men's team in general, 2 years away from competitive volleyball for most of them. How much of a factor will that be?
I think sa preparation, when it comes to training, like I said, nauna naman sila mag-prepare. What's gonna matter lang din is yung mga game situations. Kasi nga, iba yung training lang na skills training, iba rin yung mga nakakalaro ka, di ba? Kasi doon ka nagmamature whenever you play against other teams. So, I think yun lang yung challenge. Pero gelling and then skills-wise, wala tayong problema sa men's team. They've proven that naman. And ako, I'm just excited kasi for me, may meaning talaga yung pagiging, pag-prepare nila silently. Kasi ganyan din sila noong 2019. Like, wala tayong balita sa kanila, pero come the SEA Games, sinurprise nila tayo with the silver finish, di ba? So, right now, they're gonna leave us guessing, but I'm sure may ibubugat sila sa upcoming tournament nila.
We're gonna hope and we're gonna pray that they do what they do best, which is shock the Philippines and remind everyone that we have a men's volleyball team to be proud of. Also, again, best of luck to the Ribisco women's team and the Chocumucho women's team as well. And Mela, salamat. Thank you very much for coming over. And as you all know, all the volleyball fans out there have to follow Mela on all her social media accounts, on Kumu, and everything that she's doing. Kasi grabe talaga. Nagba-viral siya for so many reasons. I've lost count, diba?
Thank you, guys.
All right, when we return, as Barangay Ginebra and the San Miguel Beermen battle it out in the 2021 PBA Philippine Cup, we'll answer the question, are they still the clear-cut title favorites in the league? Stay tuned. You're watching the game.
Welcome back to the game. As of this moment, Barangay Ginebra and San Miguel Beermen are currently battling it out in the 2021 PBA Philippine Cup. As we know, these two are the most successful franchises in PBA history. But the question is, are they still the clear-cut favorites to win this year's chip? Here to help us with our discussion, we have PBA Rush analyst Chuck Araneta. Good evening, Chuck.
How are you doing?
Good to see you guys. Good evening. Hope everyone's safe. And yeah, I'm excited to talk some PBA basketball tonight.
Absolutely. And just so everyone knows what's happening right now, as of the moment, nearing the halfway point of the fourth quarter between San Miguel and Ginebra, 92-83 in favor of the Beermen. Still a lot of time because really comebacks are in vogue right now in the PBA. But Ai has a question for you, Chuck, in particular about Ginebra and San Miguel.
And Chuck, the primary question here for PBA 2021, are they still the title favorites and are they still clear-cut to get 2021's chip?
Well, that's an interesting question. And, the thing about the where we are right now in terms of the PBA is because there are so many factors that come into how each team is performing on the floor. And the reason why I say that is because you look at Ginebra's standings right now. They're at 3-3, and if this game continues the way it is, they're gonna drop to below 500 and 3-4. And people might think, nako, yan na naman yung Ginebra. Nasa alanganin sila, they're below 0.500, but and maybe they're not gonna be able to defend their title. But you have to consider that with Barangay Ginebra, they are still in the process of integrating probably one of the maybe top 3, top 4 best big men in the league in Christian Hardinger into the lineup. The difference between what Ginebra was last year in last year's conference compared to now is they did not have to go through integrating an entirely new piece into the puzzle.
Yeah.
And that's why they've had their struggles really on offense. And that's why also they've been very consistent with their play. Compared to a team like San Miguel, where everyone knows their roles, you still got the Fab Five, and then Terrence Romeo's looked spectacular after coming back again from an injury, and then you've got CJ freaking Perez coming off the bench. That's why if you ask me right now, San Miguel is a clear-cut favorite or a title contender for sure. But Barangay Ginebra is a sleeping giant. If they can figure out how to integrate San Hardinger and how to make what could potentially be the best twin tower combination in Japet Aguilar and San Hardinger work, this is a terrifying team you don't want to face in the semifinals or possibly even the finals.
Chuck, I have to agree with you about the San Miguel Beermen, especially since they just brought back a guy who's won multiple MVPs in Junmar Fajardo. And he has looked good. He has been hitting jumpers. He has been doing different things. And that win that they had recently against the TNT Tropang Giga, who were undefeated prior to facing San Miguel, was impressive. For you, was that a statement win of their intent of how they plan to retake that Philippine Cup?
Listen, Pao, we've covered PBA finals matches before between TNT and San Miguel. And you always know there's something special. There's something always a little bit more personal whenever these two teams go head to head. Like you throw out whatever hot takes you might have about maybe if it's an MVP versus MVP or an SMC versus SMC game, maybe it's not as competitive. When it's TNT versus San Miguel, this is basically Godzilla versus another Godzilla. Ganon yung intensity ng laban. So with that victory of San Miguel against TNT, they just showed that even though they're already playing at a high level, it's terrifying to consider what they're going to look like when they are at the peak of their powers come towards the end of this conference. It's their depth, it's their ability to defend multiple positions, and it's the fact that they have Junmar Fajardo, who is looking better and better with each passing game. That makes them such a terrifying prospect and really makes us remember that it wasn't such a long time ago since this team was basically the gold standard of the Philippine Cup and a team that everyone just could not get past.
Before I let Ai ask the next one, I just want to remind you, Chuck, meron naman na Godzilla versus Kong, ha? I mean, there are other big monsters involved that you can use.
Going for. Another Godzilla was like a safe answer. Baka mapahiya ako sa show
Okay, but either way, look, so there's Godzilla, there's Kong, but then there are other monsters, aren't there, Ai?
Yes. And Chuck, let's talk about the TNT top scorers and the Magnolia top scorers. What are your bold predictions about the upcoming games regarding these teams?
It's interesting that you mentioned those two teams because, and I don't want to sound too nerdy, right? But looking at the numbers, and there's the statistic called net rating, which is basically you take and this is coming from Dribble Media Stats by Ryan, you take the team's defensive rating and you subtract it from the team's offensive rating, all right? And the top 3 teams in terms of net rating are Magnolia and TNT, followed by San Miguel.
Yeah.
What does this mean? We know that championship teams are either elite at something, like for example, in the case of San Miguel, they're elite at offense, and then they're solid on defense.
Yeah.
So if you look at the numbers, Pao, Magnolia is fantastic on both ends of the floor. They have the number 3 offense and the number 5 offense. TNT has the second best defense right now, and then they have a so-so offense at number 9, but it's their defense that trumps that. So you look at these two teams, Magnolia and TNT, and it makes sense because Magnolia has already great defense, pero pinasukan mo pa ng Calvin Abueva.
That is true.
Who has the most double-doubles right now in the PBA, and is basically just reinvigorating that lineup. Same thing for TNT, although they also won recently. The numbers are gonna get better as Mikey Williams gets more and more comfortable with his team. He 36 points.
He dropped
this
36
afternoon.
points. He was so
36
close to
points,
dropping
like it was
40,
nothing.
bro. Yeah.
Exactly.
Chuck.
Exactly. So it's a terrifying prospect when you look at just how stacked this race is going to be for the semifinals. Because again, and I don't want to, you also cannot sleep on Meralco,
Yeah.
who made it to the finals last conference, diba? They're better with Mac Bello and with Alvin Pasaol. So in terms of the question, like which teams really are sleepers, you
There's
have
a
to look
lot,
at Magnolia,
Chuck.
TNT, and the Meralco Bolts because those three teams are consistent with each passing game.
Chuck, thank you very much. You know, we could go on and on. I can add Phoenix to the list also, but there's so much to talk about, but we're running out of time. Thank you very much for joining us here tonight.
Thank
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Chuck. Thank you for joining us. I'm Ai Tinsai.
I'm Paul Del Rosario. This has been The Game.